Good point.
And I think from the client side, you know, and this is something we're all used to, you're going to have to generate consensus, and that means with your lawyer, your doctor, your regulator. You know, I mean, we even just had a question on here for the gentleman from Serena about, you know, how were you able to actually use some of those patients, you know, with the slide deck and whatnot. I mean, it's going to be a brave new world, and we're going to have to crawl, maybe even lay down for a while before we start running in this way.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier about, you know, just imagine year one after the banking industry put the ATMs out. And all the expense to put those in, and adoption was probably very low. And if the banking industry had looked at ATMs as what's my year one ROI, that would have been a failure. Mm-hmm. But what they were willing to see in terms of the long view was that people wanted to be in control, and people wanted to be able to do things their way. And I think pharma is at the same crossroads now, where there's going to be some investments, maybe they're social, maybe they're digital, maybe they're offline, and they're not going to all work out. But some of them will, if you're willing to see the long view and understanding that consumer behavior has changed and pharma has to change along with their demands.
Really good point. So in between now and then, we've got belt tightening going on. We have an increased focus on ROI. And oftentimes that means focusing on tracking metrics. How many people are doing this? I see brand managers with actual performance objectives of how many people come to their website. How many people have seen that? A brand manager with how many people come to my website as a key performance objective for how many believe that that's a really great way to drive an objective for an employee? I don't think anybody does, but we're seeing it, right?
Single hand.
It's probably the wrong metric because if you're a hammer, everything in the world looks like a nail, right? If you've built a website and you've got a performance objective, you believe no matter what, come hell or high water, I'm going to get people to that website, even if it doesn't drive impact. So I throw that back to the panel and I say, what are we doing to change what looks like efficiency metrics and activity metrics to actual impact metrics? What's going to change here? What is changing?
Well, I think it's about moving from just a pill to services, to understanding that if I'm offering a pill, it's to a consumer who may be taking other medicines from other pharmaceutical companies and managing the health care of their loved ones. And I think about the need for healthcare to really offer solutions that approach the person as a human being and not as a diabetic or a hypertensive human. They need to understand
holistically.
Yeah, and I think this is quite the challenge, and I'm not saying that I have the complete answer, because if you think about how businesses have gone, they usually go with a CRM effort for their specific drug, and they don't often take it to the lifestyle or the financial or sort of the larger outcome questions that the consumer is facing. And in the meantime, there's sites like WebMD and others who have invested in the content there, but there definitely seems to be a need for those two things to come together and get beyond the pill and understand that they demand that. And in order to be providing that, that will become the metric to engage, and not just a click or a download. It's going to be about patient outcomes and how to give them the tools to live their lives healthily. And that's what the mission statements of most pharma companies profess to do. But yet it's usually about be compliant to my drug and my drug alone.
Right, right. Christine, you have a thought?
I mean, I think you have to do a little bit of all of it. I mean, I said it to you guys earlier. I mean, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Those metrics that we have in place are ones that have helped us explain what we've done and how it's, hopefully moved the ball when you look at a commercial goal, which is net sales. Now, we all know we have managers to report to, and they understand these metrics. So I think, you still need to let them know that, the monies that you gave me, we used in this way, and we actually did get some performance. But also, I mean, and Tony, you've known me a long time, I like to evolve things as well and try to get to, where we need to go. So you can start to pepper in these ideas of engagement. And for those of you in the audience that know me, I like to use hard metrics and soft metrics too. So you can put up some information that you're getting, from your patients, that they saw something or it was meaningful, or thank you for speaking to me in this way, or I was looking at, how many times a week I could exercise, and, I got a message from you about, don't forget to, stretch or this or that, and then we weaved over into an osteoarthritis discussion. It was a relevant piece of information, and it was given to me at a time of receptivity. I mean, those kinds of insights, you can start to triangulate your hard metrics that you have. And that's how you'll start to move us into a more targeted and focused way. I think it'll get there. It'll have to evolve.
I think it will. Do we have time for a couple questions to the audience? Okay, great. Any thoughts, comments, suggestions? Any arguments to any of the thoughts being discussed today?
There's one here, Tony.
We got one right here. Sorry. It's always a front row that you don't see, and I'm not sure why.
Hiding in plain sight. The dichotomy between awareness and engagement. Awareness, as we know, is once achieved, it's fairly stable, and we can determine when we want to build awareness. It's going to be this flight, this time, et cetera, et cetera. Engagement's ephemeral. People may be engaged one moment and then not the next. And they choose when they're going to be engaged. So with that dichotomy, what are the building blocks that agencies and clients need to have in place to move from a world where awareness was sort of the objective to one where engagement is going to be objective, understanding that it's ephemeral in nature, so we need to be able to act when that engagement's occurring, so we have to see it. And secondly, we can't predict when it's going to happen because the consumer chooses when to engage.
Good question.
I mean, I think from the client side, from the product management side, I think, again, it's starting to shift that dialogue a little bit from just solely awareness, and it happens all the time. And you see, on my product, we enjoyed a very high level of awareness on the physician side. It's like, great, our job's done. I'm like, oh my God, we've just begun. Like, it's, we have so many more steps to go. So what I would do as someone who leads, a brand is start to begin the conversation and pepper those kind of things into my dialogue with management at business reviews, tactical reviews. We just got through our business review. And I talked about two very dichotomous patient target segments for myself. One I could probably mobilize immediately, but would probably drop off very quickly in behavior. The other one would be a longer burn, but there's more volume there, and I would have more loyalty. But whatever my goals of my organization are, I have to kind of choose my moments. And my goals, because of the life cycle of the product I'm on, is to put sales on the line very quickly. So I'll probably default over to the first segment and talk to them about where they're engaged and they're highly motivated. And the second segment is probably not going to go to the doctor until I am really incapacitated. So it's talk about level of engagement. I don't know how I can move that because of their kind of behaviors and things like that. So I think you start the dialogue, start to pepper these things into your discussions and get them more comfortable with what you're looking at. That's what we do on my side.
And I would add to that, I think it's important to understand where does engagement fit with your brand. There are asymptomatic, conditions where maybe a very high level of engagement isn't necessarily going to provide longer compliance levels, and it may be about getting them engaged when they're making a decision about which drug, and then once they're on, it's just giving them tools and accessible to content. And should they be engaged, great, but it's the same when you think about people who read blogs versus post to blogs. Only 4% of people actually post, but a lot more people read. So I think those are the types of analogies where you might think, okay, should I have an expectation that 100% of my patients or my physicians are going to be engaged, or is it more about using the awareness metrics to get them in the consideration set, monitoring changes in thoughts or behaviors, and then determining should I create an engagement model if I'm seeing my market share slip.
And one other thing, Tony, to the gentleman's comment, I think, too, the consultants that help the brand people should help us build the story and start to get the level of awareness out there for how we're shifting. At least that's how I've gotten the needle moved in my career.
Well, I'd like to thank our panelists for their expert insights and a nice discussion this morning, and thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you.